Comrades, fellow travelers, and brothers and sisters, I'm the Stormy Poet, and welcome to this edition of the Poethnic Justice Podcast, where we use the power of literature to combat and eradicate injustice. Notice I start off every program with the phrase, where we use the power of literature to combat and eradicate injustice. I don't just say that because I think it sounds cool or deep. I say that because literature is an immensely powerful and underutilized weapon in the arsenal against systematic injustice. Not only is it a powerful tool, it's one that is vital if we as a people hope to be victorious against it. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "The secret of war lies in the communications." What he meant by this is, you can't successfully engage in warfare without the concise, detailed, strategic, and at times bold and unapologetic exchange of information. To engage in literature is to seek to become more effective in the art of trading thoughts and ideas in a way that is most comprehensible and tangible. And it is hip-hop that is the quintessential embodiment of that very art. When you think of who are considered some of the greatest writers of all time, someone like a Robert Frost or an Emily Dickinson, a Mark Twain, or a Shakespeare typically comes to mind. However, the people who should occupy that list also are the literary titans like Rakim, D.O.C., Black Thought, Nas, and Public Enemy. And these were people who, in many cases, came from absolute squalor and destitute, and who didn't have any formal education in literature. I remember the very first time I became fascinated and enamored with hip-hop. I remember my English teacher in the 11th grade gave us a homework assignment to read part of the Odyssey and to construct an original poem using its sentence structure. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Odyssey is one of two epic poems written by the Greek poet Homer in the late 8th or 7th century BC. This poem is written in a style known as dactylic hexameter, and the way it works is that every line contains 6 dactyls. Each dactyl contains one stressed syllable and 2 short syllables that follow it. Each line contains 6 of them. Writing in this manner basically forces you to be extremely selective and thoughtful with your words because you only have a limited number of syllables you can use for each line. Around that same time in my youth, I saw an interview with Rakim, who is arguably the greatest rapper of all time, where he was asked the method of how he wrote his rhymes. Turns out he had a system similar to the dactylic hexameter, where he was putting a certain number of dots for each line representing syllables. He forced himself to only pick words containing syllables that would fit in that range, and on top of that, he was rhyming the words at the end of the sentence. Neither the Iliad nor the Odyssey rhymed words at the end. He said he formulated this style out of wanting to make the lyrics more melodic and rhythmic to actually complement the music itself. It's one thing to just rap along to the beat. It's another thing to formulate the syllables in a manner that they complement the actual meter of the song itself, and that it fills in the gaps of silence between each bar, just like how the music in a song is constant. Seeing young black men and women do things with word that all these white people I was learning about in school did, and in some cases outdoing them, sparked my love and passion for literature. I remember staying up late in the night to finish that homework assignment, and I didn't do my work for my other classes either. That's when I knew I wanted to be a writer. Rakim also introduced the world to the compound syllable flow, also known as multi-syllable rhyme. The Juice Crew, a group of Queens-based artists, kept that trend going from the late 80s onward. In terms of that particular style, Coogee rap probably stands out the most. This rhyming style consists of rhyming whole pieces of phrases or sentences with the pieces of phrases or sentences that follow. For example, your whole crew's pathetic, so you just don't get it. Hold your meta all day, you'll never be as magnetic. That's something I wrote to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Your whole crew rhymes with so you. Pathetic rhymes with just don't get it. Hold your is a reverse rhyme of your whole. And at the end, magnetic rhymes with the ending lines of pathetic and don't get it. Nas, I feel, was the one who actually mastered this style. The song he did called The Setup best demonstrates this. I say mastered for the fact he incorporated storytelling and the somewhat conscious element along with the compound syllable flow in his rhyme scheme. And he did it in a way where it sounded natural and effortless, as if someone was just having a conversation. By the way, and not to get too off topic, but that's why it always irks me when Eminem stans are just hell-bent on saying that he's the best of all time. By the way, not to get too off topic, but that's why it always irks me when these Eminem stans are just hell-bent on saying he's the best of all time. True students of hip-hop aren't overly impressed by him because we understand that what he does with his rhyming scheme had already been done back in the 80s and 90s, and that most of his fans grade him on a curve because he's white. For instance, does anyone remember the rapper that went on the Guinness Book of World Records TV show in the 90s and went down as the fastest rapper in the world? Me neither. He's the fastest rapper in the world, and yet no one knows who the heck this guy is. There's no shelf life. Eminem has the ability to make his rap sound super technical, but he can't make them sound natural, effortless. catchy and conversational. Rakim could do that. Nas could do that. And for those who think Eminem is the greatest in the whole wide world, I just want you to do this for me. Go to wherever music playlist or whatever music app you listen to music on, and just find 5 Eminem songs that you keep in rotation. You can't, which proves my point. Furthermore, what was the last cookout or party you were at where someone screamed out, "Hey, play that Eminem song"? Answer, there wasn't one. And heck, if we are just discussing raw lyricism, just go look up Unsolved Mysteries by the rapper Twista. Go look up Black Thought Funkmaster Flex Freestyle. And go look up Royce da 5'9" Bar Exam 4. All that to say, from NWA to A Tribe Called Quest to Public Enemy, hip-hop, a form of literature created exclusively by foundationals that white society would just be a fad and a trend like disco, has endured for over 4 decades, has literally influenced the entire planet, and is the only form of literature/music created out of resistance. It's as Brother Flex said, everything in hip-hop culture, from the dual turntables to breaking to graffiti to block parties to the actual composition, came out of the spirit of resistance. We were locked into conditions of poverty and couldn't afford instruments, so we used the turntables and our own bodies themselves as instruments. That's where beatboxing originates. Shout out to Dougie Fresh. We weren't allowed into the dance schools, so we were influenced by the dance moves of the funk era and capoeira, which is a fighting style literally created to fend off white oppressors. And we evolved them into street dancing, aka breakdancing. We weren't allowed into the dance clubs based on skin color, and so we hosted our own parties in the parks with the large sound systems so that the whole community had access and so that they could have a good time and forget about the economic squalor they've been thrown into, for just a little bit at least. In response to police brutality, which is a manifestation of systemic racism, you got records like F the Police, Fight the Power, and Sound of the Police. Again, because of being denied into art schools based on color, black people went and created an outlet to express themselves visually, which is how you ended up with graffiti. The very essence of hip-hop is resistance to white supremacy, and those elements I named are anchored in foundational's propensity for excellence in literature. To go back to the Napoleon quote I posed earlier, the secret of war lies in communications. Before the days of social media, hip-hop is how black people communicated with one another coast to coast about their current conditions under the system. I heard it put by someone a long time ago that hip-hop was the equivalent of the news ticker you used to see at the bottom of the screen when watching CNN or MSNBC. It was how we hipped each other that the oppressor was doing the exact same thing to us on the West Coast that they were doing to us in the South, the East Coast, and the Midwest. For example, the East Coast rappers let the whole country know about Bloomberg's racist stop and frisk policy. I remember hearing about that scumbag back in 2012, and I'd never even been to New York at the time. Fast forward to 2020, a handful of black churchgoers at Brown Chapel A&E in Selma turned their backs on him when he tried to plead his case for the presidency. And his behind had to drop out of the presidential run a week later. And that's after dumping over $1 billion into his campaign. We knew about this creep here in the South, and that's because those brothers and sisters in New York made it very clear of his get down and the music that was coming from there. We got the message loud and clear, and we got on code. That's the power of literature, whether it's hip-hop, narrative, journalism, or poetry. The job of a writer should never be just to entertain. It should be to inspire and move the people to create change for the better. When it comes to whom I consider the greatest writers, like Ida B. Wells, Professor Black Truth, Maya Angelou, Alex Baldwin, Nas, or Black Thought, I feel as though they've done this masterfully. There's a reason reading and writing were illegal during slavery. The white supremacists banned it as an act of warfare to keep black people from effectively exchanging ideas. Furthermore, Sister Shahrazad Ali said, "In this day and age, reading is discouraged." Society does any and everything in its power to keep you from sitting down and actively focusing your energy on competently understanding philosophical and constructive concepts. If you can convince a people to not invest time and energy into expanding their capacity to think, they won't question or challenge their condition, and they'll be more obedient consumers as a bonus. It's time for us as black people to rediscover our zest and hunger for reading and writing. We're literally the people who invented reading and writing. It's been the past 6 decades, particularly in the past 10 years, we've been taught by the powers that be that reading and writing on a consistent basis is boring and that there's no benefit to doing so. Meanwhile, white society isn't, even though we all have access to social media, which is dumbing down the hell out of everyone. The phrase, "if you want to hide something from a nigga, put it in a book," exists for a reason. So big shouts out to King Flex for creating something that gives both the accurate and unapologetic roots of hip-hop. Hip-hop, just like jazz, just like rock and roll, just like country music, and just like anything badass about America, was created exclusively by foundational Black Americans. Full stop. And I have special admiration for this man because I had no idea that the craft I have so much respect and reverence for, the very craft that actually taught me how to write every form of literature, was so entrenched in the culture of the people I share lineage with. So I humbly thank him for exposing me to such critical knowledge. Hip-hop came from us, and for anyone who wants to debate that, family, just point to them one song and one song only. Pigmeat Markham's Here Comes the Judge. We could go earlier than that, but that song normally shuts that argument down before it gets out of the gate. So family, check out the trailer to Microphone Check, the hidden history of hip-hop at the end of the podcast, and hit the link in the description to support this man's Kickstarter, also linked in the description. Literary excellence is something FBAs have consistently and prolifically demonstrated all throughout history. It's not, quote, a white thing that only a Stephen King or a Walt Whitman or a J.K. Rowling exhibit. How to convey words harmonically and impactfully comes to us naturally, just like how I spoke of Nas's flow. And instinctively, we understand how it can be utilized against our oppressor. And the oppressor understands how it could be utilized against them, which is why they've been so hell-bent on using people like Eminem to colonize it. This documentary is crucial towards gatekeeping our FBA culture of hip-hop, aka Black literature, because it highlights and gives a microphone, if you will, to our pioneers. The innovators of hip-hop are our advocates as Black people. They created a whole art form that's in direct opposition to white supremacy. Why is giving to Tariq's Kickstarter so important? As Dr. John Henry Clark said, a people who don't support their advocates is a people who will have no advocates. In this instance, where all these other non-FBA groups whom we've invited as guests in the House of Hip Hop are trying to take credit for its invention, it's definitely time that we start hogging the damn mic. One love and one justice. The Stormy Poet.
This is the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, and we still have a lot of discrepancies as far as the origins of hip-hop, a lot of claims, who did what, who was the first this, who was the this and that, and such. But at the end of the day, we need a definitive story, all right? And that story can only be told by the founders of this culture.
Like everything was being driven and influenced by young, Black, American culture. Like the slang, the style of dress, the initial music that we chose.
You look at all the boroughs, you got, money making Manhattan and money earning Mount Vernon and Crooklyn. The Bronx was the boogie down Bronx. We was partying up there.
I am Coke LaRock, the first MC of hip hop. First cat to pick the mic up.
I introduced rapping to the turntable because when I came with it, nobody in the world was doing it. I'm right after Rudy Ray Moore.
They want to come in the mix. They want to say, we started. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. What came to be known as hip hop was solely an African American creation.
What would you get out of some Jamaican toast? What is that? I've never heard of a rapper use a Jamaican toast or a Jamaican fleur as a rhyme. I never heard of it, and I don't know where that myth came from.
My name is legendary King Trixie from the Bronx, BX from the West Side. I am the first break dancer.
That narrative that hip-hop has had 3 founding fathers, that's been rolling for the last almost 30 years, which isn't true. You don't have just 3 people who created hip-hop. Hip-hop was created by a number of different people.
I am the grandfather, the godfather of the graffiti culture. I am the first element of hip-hop.
The roots of hip-hop being Jamaican, absolutely false.
My name is MC Sha-Rock. I am a founding member of the MC/rap culture.
Cassette tapes was the internet of our time. It just traveled around by hand.
Well, I know for a fact that the B-boy stand started from the guards, the 5 percenters that would be at the jams back in the days who were acting as security.
If they get the real truth of how it all was created, then so many lies would not be able to be in existence.